What's up everybody, welcome to the next chapter of this tutorial. Darkomitov here. As usual, we're gonna continue our little journey with our Christmas card. So in this video we're gonna do a little bit of everything. We're doing a little bit of modeling, then we're gonna jump to ZBrush, and I'm gonna show you how I sculpt the detail part of the snow for the bricks and the bridge, and then we're gonna do a little bit of lighting to continue the mood. Yeah, so for the modeling part, what I started doing in this chapter is I took the little trim that is right above the door, and I decided to break it up a little bit, give it a little bit more detail because it is in the central part of the house, which means it's gonna be in the area of view. So basically what I did is I just took the base mesh that I already have, split a few edge loops here and there, and then I detached them using the detach option in Maya, and then I used fill hole to cap the missing pieces, and then as you saw me doing, I just moved the boards around to give it a bit of irregular feel. Then for the snow, what I'm doing now is I just added loops where the boards are, and I'm adjusting the snow to look like it's being piling up on the boards, which means it's not going to be perfectly flat because some of the boards are higher and some of them are lower, and therefore I wanted to have this kind of variation into the snow itself. This in the final image is not too noticeable because I have a lot of noise in the shader of the snow, but I think if you look closely you will notice it. Again, this is one of those details where you don't have to do it per se, but the more you add personal details like this, the more the cooler your image is going to be, and it will keep the viewer longer, because if they stare at it for extensive period of time, they will always have something to notice, and that especially helps if you are applying for a job and you have a portfolio piece like that, because you like your interviewer to be drawn to the image and to keep finding stuff even after extensive period of time. So now for optimization purposes, I decided to delete the polygons of the snow that are facing the house, because they will never be seen in the final render, and it's just gonna make things a little bit more optimized. Although Arnold is not scared of polygons, it can take serious geometries. The more you optimize your models, the faster render time you're gonna have in the end, or at least the loading time of your scene in memory will be faster. So it's always a good idea to keep your models optimized as much as possible. Yeah, just as a general rule of thumb. So, and then I looked up some snow references online, and I realized that the snow rarely ever has a sharp edge to it. So that's why I went and I modified a lot of the parameters, a lot of the edges on the corners of the snow, so I can make it look a bit softer and a bit more snow-like. And then I noticed that I forgot to include snow on some of the places like the chimney, so I'm doing that, and in a second here I'm gonna export the bricks, and I'm gonna go in ZBrush, and I'm gonna show you how I did the textures for that. It basically is the same technique that I talked about before from Seth Thompson. I decided to do this one in ZBrush instead of Maya because it because of the sculpting tools and Dynamesh and Decimation Master and that kind of stuff, it will allow me to be much more precise and much faster, and it will give me more freedom. So basically what I did is I just polygrouped all of the bricks into one single group, and then I duplicated them, moved them up, and then Dynameshed them together so they're one big wall of snow. And then using the sculpting brushes, I basically started thinking where the snow would pile up, how it would look like. I pulled up some references of snow on old houses and like old walls, old stone walls, like bridges and stuff like that. And then I used that as a guide for my snow. And then you will notice in places where I have like the porch light and where I have like the trim above the door, I didn't do too much snow because chances are because the snow is being blocked by the trim is not gonna be heavily populated in those areas. So I'm just trying to keep in mind, the surroundings, what is visible from camera, as well as contact points. As you can see at the moment, I am doing the contact point of the snow with the ground, which naturally will pile up a bit more. This is pretty repetitive technique. It can be a little bit daunting from time to time because you just do the same thing over and over and over again, but in the end it makes a huge difference. So even if it takes time and it's such a small detail, I would highly advise you to go the extra mile and do this kind of stuff, because the right people will notice this in your renders, and that is basically what you want. Then after I was finished, what I did is I used the marking tools to hide the back part basically of the snow that is not visible, and I imported it back to Maya just to test it out how it looks like, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing. So I decided to do the same thing for the bridge and go even more detailed, because the bridge is even closer to the camera. So I'm gonna be even more careful with that. So, and then I forgot that I didn't clean up some of my n-gons and triangles, so I went back, checked my cleanup mesh options, and then re-imported the mesh in ZBrush when I fixed those issues. So pretty much the same technique, just adding a little bit more love to this part of the image, because as I mentioned, it's going to be closer to the camera, and I also want it to look like someone did a little bit of cleaning as well on the bridge, so it's not like it's covered so much in snow that you can't see the boards anymore. So I wanted to do a little bit of both. So like if you had a bridge, I would imagine Santa or whoever lives there would go and clean it up from time to time, so it doesn't allow the snow to pile up too much, because basically he will need to cross the river and go places, whatever. So yeah, just trying to keep my story consistent, like with everything that I do. It just makes it look like all of the models are part of the same universe and they belong to the scene. So yeah, just big advice for me is always work your models to fit your story, and if you change your story in any way that is affecting other models, you need to go back and change those models, because that's the most important thing when you're showing your render to someone, online client, whoever. The most important thing is the final product, the final story in the end. They might be like, some people might be impressed by your technical skills, or by how you did the models and how you did the shaders, but the story is the first thing that people notice. So my big advice would be to always work around the clock to make your final image look as consistent as possible. You're gonna see me in the later chapter, like I did most of the work, and then I realized the house was not protected by any fence, like the property was not protected by any fence or any door, stuff like that. So last minute I just went and added a little bit of fence in the back of the house, just to it was just like few cubes extruded and moved around, but it was enough to show you when you see the image, and if you start like looking around, you would notice it in the back that there is a fence going around the house, that it's making it look like a complete like property. It's something that we're used to seeing in the real world, and at first you might not notice it, but if you start looking in, it something would feel like it's missing. So yeah, stuff like that always help. So for the snow on the rooftops of the house, I decided to just sculpt it in Maya. Maya 2018 sculpting tools are actually surprisingly good. If you ever used Mudbox, it's basically the same tool set now translated in Maya. Although ZBrush sculpting tools, according to me, are superior, for something as simple as this, I think it's more than enough if you just do it in Maya. Like, the bricks were very intricate and detailed, and I needed the power of Dynamesh and the ZRemesh and the decimation master and all that stuff. So I went in ZBrush and did that. But for something as simple as this, like just a little bit of noise on a flat surface, Maya sculpting tools will be just fine. It's faster to do it in Maya because it will save you extruding, what am I talking about? It will save you exporting time, decimating time, waiting, all this kind of stuff. So if you can do it quickly in Maya, just do it in Maya. There is no right or wrong way to do it. Just see whatever gets the job done fast. As you can see here, I'm trying to be extra careful of how the objects interact with the snow. So I added, on the top of the bench, I added snow that goes only halfway, because half of the bench underneath the little roof that goes above the door. So I would imagine it's not going to be covered with snow all the way in. And then also around the legs, I did pretty much just taking a box, subdividing it and merging it with the snow. And then when I apply the noise in the shader on both of the objects, you're not gonna see the seam because it's gonna look lumpy, and it's gonna blend much better. So for the other bench, because that one is fully visible, I just duplicated the sheet of snow, flipped it around, and then did a quick merge, quick bridge rather, and then moved to the next asset, which was the ladder, and then the barrel. The barrel was barely visible because of the bridge that I added, so I didn't spend much time on it because I didn't feel like I needed to spend too much time on it. And then after I did that, I realized that my snow on the little roof, the trim next, in the front of the house was moved somehow. So I fixed that real quick and I moved back to lighting. I wanted to add the volumetric fog and just starting to see how much the atmosphere will influence the final look before I go and adding too much details on the bark of the wood and the snow and stone texture. I wanted to see if they're gonna be if some of these details would get lost because of the volumetric fog. So, and then after I set up the initial volumetric, then I started experimenting with lights. I wanted to get basically rays of light coming from behind the house, basically simulating God rays. So I tried area light, I tried some spotlights, and then after fiddling around a little bit, I wanted to break it up, the beam of volume coming from behind, but I wanted to be to feel more broken up, to feel more like separate rays. A lot of ways how can you achieve that. You can use texture on your lights, or you can do something as simple as, like I did, grabbing a plane, just poking some holes in it and setting it up in front of the light. And what that will do is that will block some of the light, and the only light that will be that we will see from point of view of the camera is that what is going through those little holes. So just by rotating that object, it's like light gobos and stuff. So it will change the appearance of the volume fog coming from the back of the house. After that was done, I liked how it was looking, but it made my house look a little bit dark from the front and a little bit unfocused. So later I will go and add additional rim lights to the house, and tweak the porch lights to bring back some of the illumination that I had before. And then I moved back to the sleigh. I didn't do too crazy stuff. I basically created a ramp going from darker to brighter red for the seats, and I added a simpler info node that was going in the facing ratio was going to the V coordinate of the ramp. And what that allowed me to do is fake rim light, or create a velvet type of shader. If you quick fun fact is, if I take this shader and if I increase the specularity and add some anisotropic, it will turn this into a silk shader. So it's very easy to convert it into a different type of shader with similar properties. So after that, I wanted to see a bit more final render, so I created a bit final the samples just a little bit, and I waited until it resolved so I can see what's going on. And then I decided it's about time to start working on the actual river and snow. So first I'm gonna tackle the snow, and then I'm gonna go back and address the river. So for the snow, I literally created a fractal, and I piped it into a bump node, and just played around with the tiling just to see how it looks. And then I duplicated the fractal, and I also connected it to the roughness section of the shader. So wherever you see a deeper bump into the snow, it will also be duller, and wherever you see raised up elements, they will be shinier, and that one helped a lot. I do need to say that I changed the snow shader quite a few times until I arrived to the final look, because I was waiting for an update of Arnold to come out to get the SSS parameters of the AI standard shader, which I didn't have in this release. So I believe it's after this video or after the next one, I basically upgraded my Arnold to a newer version, and then I did the same shader all over again. I tried different procedural noises, and basically ended up with the snow in the final image. So from here on now, it's all about tweaking, and in the next few chapters, we're gonna go over the texturing process of some of the assets. I didn't texture all of the assets by hand. Some of them were textured procedurally using like file textures with triplanar projections, curvature, and ambient occlusion nodes, fractals to break up the blends, and all this cool stuff. For some of the other assets like the bridge, I created a custom texture in Substance Painter. Also the wood of the house, I also did a custom texture in Substance Painter, and we will be going over how to do that in future chapters. So we are pretty much getting close to being done with this chapter. What I noticed in this one is that I need to do brick tiles on the chimney, so that's going to be addressed in the next one of the next chapters as well. Here is when I noticed that. So yeah, this was it for this chapter, guys. I hope you like I hope you like the format of these videos, and if you have any questions, if you have any specific questions on some of the topics that I'm covering, regardless, modeling, texturing, lighting, placement, cameras, whatever, feel free to shoot me an email, post a comment, and if needed, I will do a separate video with real-time explanation, perhaps, if needed, or I can just reply to the comment if it's something simple. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you think that I can improve some of my stuff. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next chapter.